without bringing up race. So I'll end it with that as far as race is concerned. But very, very good interview. Everything that actually that I've been wanting to ask you for many years, and like you said, we've had a conflict in time, so it's been really hard to get in contact with you. But this has been an amazing interview. I still have a few more questions if you can stay on. I'd certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, go ahead, boss.
Okay, so Suge Knight essentially has the bill money. If he gets out, do you think he's gonna go into seclusion? We'll never hear from Suge Knight again.
No, I don't think that's how Suge Knight rolls. To be honest with you, I think if Suge Knight gets out, he would continue to do the same thing he always has. You have to keep in mind that for the last 20 years, Suge Knight has walked around without a bodyguard, and that's what's made him so susceptible to attempts on his life. Is because Suge Knight was out there in the streets and was out there publicly. And I like to think that people change, and I like to think that people change the way they operate, but I don't think that people really ever do. I think they learn from their past experiences, but I don't think that people naturally change their habits. And unfortunately, I think that if Suge Knight is released, he will go back to doing the things that he always did, which, he does have family ties in LA. He does have kids in Los Angeles, and I don't foresee him going into hiding or seclusion.
You mean to tell me, JMIX, that he's not gonna go to South Africa and go hide with Tupac? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know if it's South Africa or Cuba at this point, but no, I don't think so. And I don't think he would
Okay.
have a mob and peace tattoo for Tupac if he thought that Tupac was still alive.
Right, right. And I don't think either, and I just bring that point up about Tupac that he would not go run and hide because that's not his nature. And if Tupac ever did that, then he'd probably be one of the worst people ever. But that is not his nature. Tupac Shakur would take on anything head on, whether or not it was going to prison or whatnot. Because if you think about it, Jesse, he'd have been out quicker than you think. I mean, what did they give him, a 4-year sentence or whatnot? He
Yeah. Yeah, and here in Illinois, they call it a 6-month turnaround. Let's say you violate your bail or parole violation at most, or they send him back to prison. He would have already had time served, and typically on prison time, they cut your time in half instantly. So Tupac was only really looking about 8 or 9 months max, even if he went back to prison on those rape charges.
Yeah, I I couldn't agree with you more. Favorite Tupac album?
That's a tough one. All eyes on me. It has to be. When I was, see, I'm an old cat. When I was 17 and it was out on cassette, we would choose what party we would go to based on who had it because it was $30, and in 1996 money, that was a lot of money. That's probably like $60, $70 in today's money, to be honest
Right.
with you. So if you had that double tape and there was conflicting parties, we would go to whoever had that album. So it has to be that album. There's like a deeper political album would be Machiavelli. It's really dark and I like it. Are You Still Down? The first posthumous album. I guess Still I Rise was Still I Rise. I can't remember which one was first. But I tell you what, Are You Still Down is the way that you should have done every posthumous album. Get the original producers on there, get them to remake the songs. But if I had to pick one, it would definitely be All Eyes on Me, just because of the memories it brings. That whole album was banging. Shout
I
out to
think.
Johnny J too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was a great producer. I would say that my favorite album would have probably been Me Against the World. That was Tupac to me at his finest. But there's a question here that keeps ringing out in the actual forum, and they're asking me to ask you about John Potash, and I don't know if you want to make that a short answer because I know that question could get pretty long. So, in a short answer, do you want to tell me what
What's the
you
question about
think?
John?
I don't even know. What do you think about his theory? Probably, if I had to guess, what do you think about John Potash's theory?
I think John Potash is a smart guy. It's funny that that's being brought up because I just talked to John on Facebook Messenger. I'm going to be interviewing John again for his new book mid February. I think that I think he's really smart dude, and I think that he's right about COINTEL on a lot of things. Now, the FBI was surveillance in Tupac. They were building RICO cases against Death Row Records. I think that John is on to something because even though it's like I've always said, you don't have to agree with everything another man does and still be cool with them and still have common ground. If you can find common ground, then it makes for a more intellectual discussion. Now, John Potash, I sent him a message and I said, hey, I had brought up earlier in the interview the LAPD officers that were caught running drugs between Los Angeles and Vegas. I said that to John. I said, you got a new book out, and we're noticing with Reggie Wright Jr. and with LAPD cops getting busted left and right, that maybe this ties into what you're talking about. It might not just be FBI COINTELPRO. Obviously they're going to use police officers as well. So I'm going to have him on the show probably, like I said, middle of February, and we're going to hash that out. I have nothing but respect for John. I don't agree with his whole theory. I don't think that it was COINTELPRO that had him killed. But I think that if you look at the police angle and you look at it from that set of eyes and you read John Potash's book, The War on FBI Leaders and Tupac Shakur, that you can draw some parallels there. I think John's on the right track. He's obviously a smarter guy than I am, but I don't think John has had as much access as R.J. Bond and myself and others to the actual police files. And I think that if I can show John some of these, maybe he can give us a better educated guess on what he think really happened to Tupac.
Okay. Speaking on the FBI, there's been claims that the FBI was actually trailing Notorious B.I.G. the night of the shooting in Los Angeles, and Biggie, and actually Sean Puffy Combs telling somebody that the FBI was trailing him. Do you believe that he said the FBI was trailing him just so that he could get those guys that he didn't want around him off his back? Kind of like, the police are watching me, so hey, you got to stay away. Or do you think the FBI was actually trailing him that night?
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say it's awfully convenient that there's a video of the shooting. Now we've all seen the video. I'm assuming, and it does look like amateur video, but keep in mind in '97 to have a camcorder at the ready is something that not a lot of people had, and I think that it's very very plausible that the FBI was trailing Sean Puffy Combs that night, just due to the simple fact that they were already working RICO investigations into Death Row Records, and they already had Mookie management and East Coast actual mafia members involved in the management of 662. So I think it's very possible that Sean Combs' name had come up a few times under their investigation of Death Row Records. So if I had to take a best educated guess, I would say, of course, that they were being trailed that night. And it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Tupac was being watched that the night he was shot. But I would draw back to that footage of Biggie actually getting shot. It appears to be amateur footage, but you got to ask yourself why someone's sitting outside the Peterson Museum with a big old-fashioned VHS recorder in their hands. To me, that
Do you
just
think
doesn't smell right.
do you think it was edited? Because it looked kind of edited to me. If you
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it was edited for context, and I think it was edited with an overlay, with voices over the top. Because if you notice a 96 video, um, it kind of has a world star effect to it now if you listen to it. It's like, oh no, that just happened. I think that that's an edit. And now I'm putting my tinfoil hat on to say that, but I mean, you have to keep in mind if you just look at it at face value. Sean Combs says he's being trailed by the FBI, and poof, there's video of what happened that night from a car that was parked. So I mean, to me, that rings true.
that car that was there, that was in that footage, you think that that was the car that was involved in the shooting?
The one that they actually caught the
Yes.
yes, yes, I do believe that that is the Impala that's in that.
Was that real footage that I'm going back to that science fiction film Murder Rap? Was that real footage of the car coming out, or a car coming out of a garage where the videotape was black and white and it was flickering back and forth. Did you see that part, or was that just
I
like a recreation?
I believe that's a recreation. They spent a lot of time filming at the Peterson Automotive Museum, and they actually had leased the same cars that were used in the A&E special from the same company. So they had recreated most of that. I believe that that is a recreation.
Okay. So
And a fun tip too. They actually released the same car for the Johnny Depp movie Labyrinth about Russell Poole. So they used the same museum, obviously, and the same cars that they used in Murder Rap and in the A&E special. It's actually a custom place out of Los Angeles that leases those cars.
that's going to be a great movie. Speaking about Labyrinth, when do you know when that movie's coming out?
Last I was told, it was pushed to September of this year. I did talk to Russell Poole's son. I did an interview with him in Long Beach, and I sat and had a beer with him. He was showing me, because he was on set and he was filming it. He was showing me some of the shots that were filmed, and it looks pretty damn good, to be honest with you. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, me too. It's actually gonna give us the version that, and I always say Russell Poole was a actual really really good cop and very honorable, and he had no reason. I mean, as much investigation he had did, and all the history he had with the LAPD, I don't find any reason why he had to make up any story about who he suspected to be involved with the Notorious B.I.G. I just and that's the thing that gets me, Jesse, is that a lot of these people think that, you have Russell Poole, who's a dedicated police officer, many successful investigations and high profile investigation, that he's just going to decide to one day, out of thin air, just make up a story about these cops that he knew nothing about, and just make up this grand story to sell to the public, and really risk his career, risk his livelihood to do that. So
Well,
I go ahead. I'm sorry.
sorry to cut you off there, but here's the thing about Russell Poole. Russell Poole was a homicide detective that actually solved 108 murder cases. Russell Poole solved 108 murder cases. Now, if you compare that to, I guess, the other side of the fence, a Greg Kading never solved a murder case in his whole career. Russell Poole was very dedicated. I've talked to members of his family, and I know that one thing that I want to make clear to everybody is Valletta Wallace, when she met Russell Poole's son, when they were filming Labyrinth, she said, I always believed and trusted in your dad because your dad, meaning Russell Poole, was the only one who called my son by his name, which was Christopher. Um, I,
Okay.
I think that he took that case very seriously because I believe that he knew that, just like with the Rampart scandal that he blew wide open, I believe that Russell Poole knew that there were rogue cops involved, and he was like a dinosaur. He's one of the good guys. He was the good cop because even in today's age with all the police violence that's being put everywhere on social media, there are still good cops out there, and I believe that Russell Poole was one of those.
Absolutely. So you're telling me, Jesse, that the Russell Poole, he never pointed a gun at an infant. Is that what you're telling me?
That wasn't fair. No,
No, I'm
no,
not gonna.
no,
We're not gonna go.
no. Russell Poole never did that. I can think of someone on the other side of the fence that might have did that, but I guess they can tell Judy that Newton Street was there.
No, no. I was just trying to throw some humor in there. It's all good, man. We know the story. We know what's happened, and we know that Oprah didn't kill Tupac, according to the report, because we do have reports that come in. So yeah, I was just throwing it in there. I didn't want to just try and liven it up for the room. So anyhow, is I'm running out of questions here. I mean, you're like the encyclopedia for, like I said, Tupac. You know everything about Tupac, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time to answer all these questions. And I'm sure that there's a whole lot that we can talk about. I'm sure we can talk for many hours. So I'm gonna maybe cut it short here. Probably give another 5 minutes. Is there anything that you like to say? Like you to plug your channel, any upcoming projects, anything that you want to speak on that you feel is important for the Tupac Nation to to know.
Yeah, I want everybody to go check out your channel, JM Kazi Podcast. Go subscribe to his channel. He's at 820. Get him up to 1,000 so he's not getting hit with the YouTube ban hammer. And I appreciate everybody out there that's just out there for some truth. Look, we're not always going to agree on who killed Tupac or is Tupac in Cuba or not. But one thing I think that we can all agree on is if we're on this channel or if we're over there on JM Kazi's channel, that we all share a common theme. And that's what this is about, finding common ground. So I think it's safe to say that we're all Tupac fans. And as long as we're keeping his memory alive out there and we're digging and doing the best that we can to uphold his legacy and try to solve his murder, that is, if we can find that common ground, that us on the internet, us as Tupac fans, will be unstoppable. Mo Preen famously said, Tupac fans ain't no joke. And that is the truest shit I've ever heard anybody say. He's absolutely right about that. So even for the people out there right now in this live chat that don't agree with me, that's fine. We need to find the common ground, which is a love for Tupac. And no matter if we disagree, our conversation is keeping his name alive, and our conversation can lead to other things that could eventually solve his murder. Tupac liked to say that he might not change the world, but he'll definitely spark the mind of the person that will. I like to say this channel might not solve the murder of Tupac, but it might very well spark the mind of the person that will. I've not claimed to solve anything, but just like most Tupac fans out there, I'm just digging as hard as I can for the truth.
Well said, Jesse. Now, before we go, I'm going to leave you with this last question. Do you
Right on.
think the Tupac investigation murder is ever going to be solved?
I think that there's a possibility of that happening if we see a shakeup in the hierarchy of LAPD. I believe that Vegas wants to close this case, and I believe that Vegas is sitting on a lot more information than is publicly known, but they're not going to give that information to an LAPD. LAPD leak any and all information that they get as soon as they get it to places like TMZ. So I think once we see, and we're starting to see it now, people like Charlie Beck stepping down, and once they shake up the LAPD a bit and do some internal house cleaning, I think we're seeing that now, and I think there's a very good probability it could happen in our lifetimes. One could hold out hope, but I'm going to be realistic and say that until police are willing to out their own, until they're willing to become a Russell Poole and call out corruption for what it is, until that happens, we probably won't see justice for Tupac. Because I firmly believe, and I will pick this hill to die on, that the reason that the murder of Tupac Shakur has not been solved is because there were off-duty police officers involved with it.
Absolutely. Good point. Yeah, you're certainly right. That's the reason why that these crimes have gone unsolved is just for that same reason you said, because there was off-duty police officers that were involved. Now, I won't make any allegations onto who those police officers were, but you folks out there can go out and make your own assessment on that. Anyhow, JMIX, I want to say thank you for doing this interview with me. I want to thank everybody out there who's in the chat board, even the people that came out, the trolls that came out. We certainly appreciate you pushing up the numbers. I'm certain JMIX appreciates it. JMIX, I'm gonna leave you with your last words. I know that you already gave your last declaration, but if you want to thank the fans out there, and hopefully we can do this again soon in the future. Maybe not an interview, but I'd certainly love to get on the live stream with you and talk about Tupac and Tupac in general. Just think about this for a minute. How many artists do you know to this day, 20 years after he has died, that his legacy still lives? If you can answer that, then you know who it is.
That's what's up. And like I said, I appreciate you taking the time, dude. You're a really good dude. I enjoyed talking to you. And as soon as this live stream is over, it's going to be archived. You won't be able to see it. If you do want to see it, you go check out JM Kazi's channel. It's going to be posted on there for everybody who missed any of this. So one love, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out to listen to this little back and forth between me and JM Kazi, and I recommend everybody go check out his channel.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it. Everybody have a good night.
You too, bud. Thanks, man.
Thank you.